The text arrived at 11 in the morning. Emily stared at the screen for almost 10 minutes before she found the courage to send it. Her hands shook. Her makeup artist kept asking if she was okay. Her bridesmaids kept laughing in the next room. The wedding venue buzzed with excitement. Everyone thought she was nervous because she was getting married. Nobody knew she was about to text the one man she had never truly gotten over. The one mistake that had haunted her for an entire year. The one name she still searched for at night when nobody was watching. Nathan, her ex, her first real love, her biggest regret. Emily opened their old message thread. The conversation had been dead for months. Neither had spoken since the breakup. Neither had reached out. Neither had apologized. But every single message remained there. Thousands of memories trapped inside a screen. Road trips, late-night jokes, future plans, arguments, promises, dreams, an entire life that never happened. Emily felt tears forming before she even started typing. Because despite everything, despite the engagement, despite the wedding dress hanging beside her, despite the guests arriving downstairs, part of her still loved him. Maybe she always would. Finally she typed, "I'm getting married in 2 hours." She stared at the sentence. Her heart pounded violently. Then she added, "If you want to change something, come over." Her thumb hovered above send. One click, one message, one decision capable of changing everything. Then she pressed it. Delivered. Emily immediately felt sick. She tossed the phone onto the bed and covered her face. What had she just done? She was supposed to be marrying Daniel. A good man, kind man, a stable man, the kind of man every parent wants their daughter to marry. But Nathan had been different. Nathan was the kind of love people write books about. Messy, complicated, passionate, the kind that consumes you completely, the kind that makes you believe destiny exists. And maybe that was the problem, because real life isn't built for storybook love. It's built for practicality, stability, security. At least that's what Emily had convinced herself after the breakup. A year earlier, everything had seemed perfect. Nathan had been building his own construction company. Emily had just finished graduate school. They'd rented a small apartment together. Nothing fancy, just enough. They were poor, but happy. At least that's how she remembered it now. Reality had been more complicated. Nathan worked constantly, 12-hour days, sometimes 14, sometimes more. He always said he was doing it for their future. But Emily spent more and more nights alone. Dinner became lonely. Weekends disappeared. Phone calls became shorter. Conversations became arguments. Arguments became silence. Then Daniel entered the picture. At first he was just a coworker. Successful, funny, present. Everything Nathan wasn't becoming. While Nathan worked late nights chasing dreams, Daniel showed up. Coffee during lunch breaks. Texts during difficult days. Small acts of attention. Small acts of affection. Small acts that slowly became dangerous. Nothing physical happened. At least not at first. But emotional cheating starts long before physical cheating. Emily knew that now. She just hadn't admitted it back then. One night Nathan arrived home exhausted after another 16-hour shift. Emily sat waiting in the kitchen. Daniel had spent the entire evening texting her, making her laugh, making her feel noticed, making her feel important. Nathan barely looked up from his food. That was the night everything exploded. "You don't even see me anymore," Emily had said. Nathan looked confused. "What? You heard me." He rubbed his tired eyes. "Emily, not tonight. See? That's exactly what I mean." The argument lasted 3 hours. 3 painful hours. Years of frustration spilling out. Neither listening, both hurting, neither willing to back down. At one point Nathan slammed his fist against the table. Not at her, not even close, but hard enough to make her flinch. His face immediately filled with regret. "I'm sorry." But the damage was done. 2 weeks later they ended things. Officially. For years together. Gone. Just like that. The worst part? Neither wanted it. Both expected the other person to come back. Both expected reconciliation. Both expected time to heal things. But pride is a dangerous thing. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. Then Daniel asked Emily out. And she said yes. Mostly because she was lonely. Partly because she was angry. And maybe because moving on seemed easier than admitting she still loved someone else. Daniel treated her well. Really well. Flowers. Dates. Tension. Consistency. Everything she claimed she wanted. 6 months later he proposed. Everyone celebrated. Everyone except Emily. Because deep down, a tiny voice kept asking the same question. What if? What if she'd waited? What if Nathan came back? What if she'd made the biggest mistake of her life? Those questions followed her all the way to her wedding day, which is why she sent the text. The stupid, selfish, desperate text. And now there was nothing she could do except wait. An hour passed. No response. Emily checked her phone. Nothing. Another 30 minutes. Still nothing. The wedding coordinator knocked. Guests are arriving. Emily forced a smile. Okay. Another 15 minutes. Nothing. No call. No text. No reply. No Nathan. The silence hurt more than she expected, because it confirmed her worst fear. He had moved on. Completely. The message meant nothing. She meant nothing. Maybe he never wanted to hear from her again. Maybe he hated her. Maybe he should. The ceremony started. Emily walked down the aisle. Daniel smiled at her. Everyone stood. Music played. People cried. Everything happened exactly as weddings are supposed to happen. Yet Emily couldn't stop glancing toward the entrance. Just once. One final time. Part of her expected Nathan to appear dramatically. Breathless. Desperate. Ready to fight for her. Ready to tell her he still loved her. Ready to stop everything. But the doors never opened. And Nathan never came. So Emily got married. She kissed Daniel. She smiled for photographs. She danced. She laughed. She pretended. And eventually life moved forward. Or at least it looked like it did. 1 year later, Emily sat beside Daniel in a small restaurant celebrating their first anniversary. The marriage wasn't terrible. It wasn't amazing either. Just comfortable. Predictable. Safe. Daniel loved routines. Emily had learned every detail of his schedule. Every habit. Every preference. Every predictable conversation. Nothing was wrong. Yet somehow, something felt missing. The kind of missing that keeps people awake at night. The kind that whispers quietly during moments of silence. The kind that asks uncomfortable questions. After dinner, Daniel received a work call. He stepped outside. Emily wandered across the street while waiting. A small cemetery sat beside an old church. She wasn't sure why she walked inside. Maybe boredom. Maybe curiosity. Maybe fate. Rows of gravestones stretched beneath old trees. The evening air felt strangely peaceful. Emily wandered slowly between graves, reading names, dates, stories reduced to stone. Then she stopped. Completely. Her entire body froze. Because 20 feet away stood a gravestone she recognized instantly. Not because she'd seen it before. Because she knew the name. Nathan Carter. Her heart stopped. No, no, no. The name blurred. She rushed forward. Her breathing becoming frantic. The closer she got, the worse it became. Because it wasn't just the same name. It was him. Same birthday. Same hometown. Same person. Nathan Carter. The man she once loved. The man she texted before her wedding. The man who never showed up. Dead. Emily felt the world tilt sideways. Then she saw the date. And her knees nearly collapsed. Date of death. The exact day of her wedding. The exact same day she sent that message. The exact same day she waited for him. The exact same day he never came. Her stomach twisted violently. A cold wave crashed through her body. Because suddenly, for the first time, she realized something horrifying. Nathan hadn't ignored her. Nathan hadn't abandoned her. Nathan hadn't moved on. Nathan had died. Emily stared at the gravestone in disbelief. Then she noticed the inscription underneath. A single sentence. Simple, small, but devastating. Died in a motorcycle accident while rushing to meet someone he loved. The words hit harder than any physical pain she'd ever experienced. Her legs finally gave out. She collapsed onto the grass. Tears exploded from her eyes instantly, because in that moment, she knew, deep in her soul, without evidence, without proof, without logic, she knew exactly where Nathan had been going. And suddenly, the last message she'd ever sent him became the most horrifying thing she'd ever read. If you want to change something, come over. And somewhere inside her breaking heart, a terrible question began to form. What if he had actually been coming? And what if his death wasn't an accident at all? Emily couldn't remember how long she stayed beside the grave. Minutes, maybe hours. The world around her seemed distant and unreal. People walked through the cemetery. Birds chirped in nearby trees. Cars passed outside the gates. Life continued normally, but Emily felt like her entire reality had shattered. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. The old message thread with Nathan was still there. She scrolled upward until she found the text she had sent on her wedding day. The words stared back at her. I'm getting married in 2 hours. If you want to change something, come over. Below it sat the word that now haunted her. Delivered. Delivered. Not ignored. Not rejected. Delivered. Meaning he had seen it. Emily's chest tightened. If he had seen the message, and if he died rushing somewhere he loved, then there was a terrifying possibility she could no longer ignore. Nathan had been coming. He had actually been coming. Tears blurred her vision. For an entire year she had hated him. For an entire year she believed he chose not to fight for her. For an entire year she told herself he never cared enough to show up. And all that time, he might have been speeding toward her, trying to stop the wedding, trying to save what they once had, trying to reach her. The realization felt unbearable. That night, Emily barely spoke during the drive home. Daniel noticed immediately. Everything okay? Emily forced a smile. Just tired. Daniel accepted the answer. He always accepted answers. That was part of the problem. Nathan would have pushed. Nathan would have noticed. Nathan would have demanded the truth. But Daniel simply nodded and kept driving. And for the first time, Emily hated how easy that was. After Daniel fell asleep, Emily sat alone in the living room. The clock showed nearly midnight, yet she couldn't stop thinking about Nathan. Eventually she opened her laptop. Then she typed his name into a search engine. Nothing. She tried again. Different spelling. Nothing. Then finally she found an old local news article. Her stomach dropped. The headline read, "Local motorcyclist killed in high-speed collision. Date, her wedding day." Emily clicked immediately. The article was short, painfully short. According to the report, Nathan had been traveling significantly above the speed limit when a truck unexpectedly entered an intersection. The collision happened less than 3 miles from her wedding venue. 3 miles. Emily stared at the screen. 3 miles. He had been so close. So unbelievably close. Her breathing became uneven. 3 miles meant he almost made it. 3 miles meant he wasn't headed somewhere random. 3 miles meant he was practically there. Then she noticed something else. The accident occurred 47 minutes before her ceremony. 47 minutes. If he had arrived safely, he would have reached the church before she walked down the aisle. Emily covered her mouth. The timing was too perfect, too horrible, too cruel. Suddenly she remembered something. A conversation years ago. One lazy Sunday afternoon while lying together on a couch. Nathan had laughed and said, "If you ever try marrying someone else, I'll probably show up like some idiot in a movie." Emily had laughed too. "You'd better. I mean it. You'd actually stop my wedding?" Nathan pulled her closer. "Absolutely. Even if you hated me, I could never hate you." She remembered laughing. She remembered kissing him. She remembered believing they would spend their lives together. Now that memory felt like a knife twisting inside her chest. Because maybe he had meant every word. The next morning Emily called the cemetery office. Her voice shook while speaking to the receptionist. "I'm looking for information about someone buried there." The woman was hesitant at first. But after some explanation, she agreed to provide contact information for Nathan's mother. Emily nearly hung up 3 times before making the call. Finally, a soft, elderly voice answered. "Hello." Emily froze. For a second, she couldn't speak. Then she introduced herself. Silence filled the line. A long silence. Finally, the woman spoke. "I wondered if you'd ever call." Emily's heart stopped. "You knew who I was?" A sad laugh came through the phone. "Nathan talked about you every day." Emily immediately began crying. Nathan's mother sounded emotional too. "You were the love of his life, Emily." The words shattered her. Because they confirmed everything she feared. Everything she hoped. Everything she regretted. The conversation lasted nearly 2 hours. And every minute hurt worse than the last. Nathan never stopped loving her. Not once. Not even after the breakup. Not even after months of silence. Not even after she got engaged. According to his mother, he kept every photograph. Every letter. Every gift. Every memory. He never dated anyone else. Never moved on. Never tried. "He thought you'd come back," his mother whispered. The sentence nearly destroyed Emily. Because she had thought the exact same thing. 2 stubborn people, waiting for the other person, until it became too late. Then Nathan's mother said something that made Emily stop breathing. "He received a text that morning." Emily closed her eyes. "Oh God." "He left immediately." The room spun. "Nathan told me he had one last chance." Emily began sobbing uncontrollably, because now there was no doubt. No uncertainty. No misteri. Nathan had been coming. He had been coming for her. After a moment, his mother continued. "He was smiling when he left." Emily pressed a hand against her mouth. "He looked happier than I'd seen him in months." The tears wouldn't stop, because she could picture it perfectly. Nathan reading the text. Nathan believing he still had a chance. Nathan grabbing his keys. Nathan rushing out the door. Nathan racing toward the future they were supposed to have. And never arriving. Then his mother revealed something unexpected. "There's something else." Emily wiped her eyes. "What?" "A letter." The words hung in the air. "A letter," Emily whispered. "He wrote it 3 days before he died." Emily's pulse accelerated. "What does it say?" "I never opened it." "What?" "It has your name on it." Emily felt frozen. For an entire year, there had been a letter, waiting, unopened, hidden. A final message from the man she never stopped loving. Nathan's mother took a shaky breath. "I think it's time you read it." Emily stared into the darkness of her living room. Heart pounding, tears falling. For the first time since finding the grave, she felt genuine fear. Because deep down she already knew. Whatever was inside that letter was going to change everything. Emily barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the same image. Nathan on his motorcycle, reading her message, smiling, believing he still had a chance. Then darkness, then silence, then a gravestone. By sunrise, she was already driving. The entire 3-hour trip to Nathan's hometown felt unreal. Her mind replayed memories she had spent a year trying to bury. Their first date, their first apartment, the night they stayed awake until sunrise talking about the future, the day they picked baby names even though they weren't engaged yet. Little moments. Ordinary moments. The kind people never appreciate until they're gone forever. When she finally arrived, Nathan's mother opened the door before she even knocked. The older woman looked exactly how grief should look. Not dramatic, not loud, just tired. Like carrying sadness for too long had slowly bent her soul. The second she saw Emily, her eyes filled with tears, and before either woman said a word, they hugged, both crying, both mourning the same man. Inside the house, everything felt frozen in time. Pictures of Nathan covered shelves. Family vacations, graduation photos, birthday parties, a lifetime reduced to frames. Then Emily saw something that shattered her. Picture of herself, still sitting on the fireplace, right in the center, as if she never left, as if she still belonged there. Nathan's mother noticed her staring. He refused to move it. Emily felt her throat tighten painfully. He said taking it down would feel like giving up. The tears returned instantly, because Nathan never gave up. Not really. He waited. He hoped. He believed. Until the very end. After a while, his mother disappeared upstairs. When she returned, she carried a small wooden box. Emily's hands started shaking immediately. The box looked ordinary, but somehow it felt heavier than anything she'd ever held. Nathan's mother placed it carefully on the table. Everything important was inside. Emily swallowed hard. For a moment she couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Finally she opened it. Inside sat old photographs, movie tickets, receipts, handwritten notes, tiny pieces of a relationship that once felt unbreakable. Then she found the envelope, white, slightly worn, her name written across the front in Nathan's handwriting. Emily, just that, nothing else. No address, no explanation, just her name. The sight alone made her cry, because after all this time, she still recognized every curve of his handwriting. Nathan's mother quietly left the room, giving her privacy, giving her space, giving her one final moment with the man she lost. Emily stared at the envelope for nearly a minute before finally opening it. The letter inside was several pages long. Her hands trembled so badly she could barely read. Then she began. Emily, if you're reading this, something unexpected probably happened. A weak smile appeared through her tears. That sounded exactly like Nathan. Always practical. Always trying to soften difficult moments. She continued, I don't know what our future looks like anymore. Maybe we'll get back together. Maybe we won't. Maybe you'll hate me forever. Maybe you'll forgive me. But there are things I need to say while I still have the courage. Emily felt her chest ache. Every word sounded alive. Like Nathan was sitting beside her. Like he hadn't been gone for a year. I know I wasn't perfect. I worked too much. I stopped listening. I thought providing for our future was enough. I forgot that sometimes people need presence more than promises. Tears blurred the page. Because he understood. Even then. Even before she did. Nathan understood where things went wrong. The letter continued. For months after we broke up, I blamed you. Then I blamed myself. Then I blamed fate. Eventually I realized none of that matters. Because blame doesn't bring people back. Emily wiped her eyes. Her heart hurt in ways she couldn't describe. Then she reached the paragraph that changed everything. The truth is simple. I never stopped loving you. She broke. Completely. Her body folded forward. Sobs exploded from her chest. A year. An entire year wasted. A year believing he didn't care. A year believing he chose not to fight. A year believing a lie. And all along, he loved her. The same way she loved him. The same way both of them were too stubborn to admit. When she finally calmed herself enough to continue reading, the words became even harder. People talk about soulmates like they're magical. I don't think that's true. I think soulmates are just people who keep choosing each other. Again. And again. And again. Even when it's difficult. Emily felt physically sick. Because she stopped choosing him. Not because she didn't love him. Because she got scared. Lonely. Impatient. Human. And now she would spend the rest of her life wondering what would have happened if she'd waited just a little longer. Then she reached the final page. And her breathing stopped. If somehow life gives us another chance, I'll be there. No matter how long it takes. No matter how far away you are. If you call me, I'll come. The room vanished. Everything vanished. Because suddenly all she could see was Nathan reading her wedding day message. If you want to change something, come over. And then him leaving. Immediately. Without hesitation. Exactly like he promised. Exactly like he wrote. Exactly like he always would have. If she called, he came. The realization shattered what remained of her heart. She cried harder than she ever had in her life. Not because Nathan died. Not only because of that, but because she finally understood something devastating. The love of her life didn't abandon her. The love of her life answered. And he died trying to reach her. Hours later, after the tears finally slowed, Nathan's mother returned to the room. She sat quietly beside Emily. Neither spoke for a long time. Eventually, the older woman reached into the wooden box. There was one more thing. Emily looked up. Nathan's mother handed her an old phone. Nathan's phone. The same one recovered after the accident. Emily stared at it, confused. What is it? His mother smiled sadly. It still works. Emily frowned. Then she noticed the screen. An unsent draft message. Her pulse accelerated instantly. A message Nathan had been writing before he died. A message never delivered. A message she had never seen. Emily's hands shook as she opened it. And when she read the first sentence, the air left her lungs. Because it wasn't a goodbye. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't even about the wedding. It was a question. One simple question. A question so heartbreaking that Emily immediately started crying again. The message read, Emily, when I get there, do you think we can start over? Emily drove home with Nathan's phone sitting on the passenger seat. The entire trip felt like a dream she couldn't wake up from. Every few minutes she glanced at the device, at the final message, at the words he never got the chance to send. When I get there, do you think we can start over? The cruelest part wasn't that he died. The cruelest part was that she already knew her answer. If Nathan had walked through those church doors that day, she would have gone with him. Not because Daniel was a bad man. Not because her marriage was terrible. But because some people become part of your soul. And no matter how hard you try to move forward, a piece of you stays behind with them. For an entire year she thought Nathan didn't choose her. Now she knew the truth. He chose her until his last breath. And somehow that hurt even more. When Emily arrived home, Daniel immediately noticed something was wrong. Her eyes were swollen. Her face looked exhausted. She barely spoke during dinner. Finally, late that night, Daniel sat beside her on the couch. Emily. She looked up. We need to talk. The concern in his voice made her chest tighten. Because Daniel truly loved her. He always had. And suddenly she realized how unfair she'd been. Not just to Nathan. To Daniel too. Daniel deserved someone who loved him completely. Not someone haunted by another man's memory. Not someone who secretly wondered about a different future. Not someone who sent texts to ex-boyfriends on her wedding day. The guilt became unbearable. Tears filled her eyes again. Daniel immediately looked worried. What happened? For a long moment Emily couldn't speak. Then everything came out. The cemetery. The grave. The accident. The letter. The message. Everything. Daniel listened quietly, never interrupting, never getting angry, never raising his voice. And somehow that made it even harder. When she finally finished, silence filled the room. Minutes passed. Neither moved. Finally Daniel spoke. Very softly. You still love him. It wasn't a question. Emily started crying. Because lying now would only make things worse. Daniel nodded slowly. Almost like he'd known for a long time. Part of you never stopped. Emily covered her face. I'm sorry. Daniel looked away, his own eyes beginning to water. I think I always knew. That sentence broke her, because she realized he really did. Every anniversary, every distant stare, every moment she seemed somewhere else. He noticed all of it. He just loved her enough to ignore it. For months, for years. hoping one day she'd fully choose him. But she never did. Daniel stood slowly, then walked to the window. Rain tapped gently against the glass outside. After a long silence, he spoke. "You know what hurts the most?" Emily couldn't answer. Daniel smiled sadly. "You're crying harder over losing him than you ever cried over losing us." The room fell silent again, because there was no defense. No explanation. No argument. Just truth. And sometimes truth hurts more than lies ever could. A few weeks later, Emily moved out. The divorce wasn't dramatic. No screaming. No fighting. No lawyers attacking each other. Just two good people accepting a painful reality. Daniel deserved better. And Emily knew it. The months that followed were difficult. Some days she couldn't get out of bed. Some days she drove to Nathan's grave just to sit beside it. Some days she reread the letter over and over again, searching for answers, searching for peace, searching for something that would make the pain easier. Nothing did, because grief isn't something you solve. It's something you learn to carry. Then one afternoon, nearly 6 months later, Emily visited Nathan's mother again. The two women had grown surprisingly close, connected by loss, connected by love, connected by the same missing person. While helping clean the garage, Emily discovered an old cardboard box hidden beneath a workbench. Inside were dozens of notebooks, Nathan's journals. His mother smiled softly. "He wrote in those for years." Emily carefully opened one, then another, then another. Page after page contained thoughts, dreams, goals, fears, memories, and on almost every page, her name, not obsessively, not desperately, just naturally, like she existed inside every future he imagined. Then she found an entry written only days before the accident. Her hands trembled. She started reading. "People keep telling me to move on. Maybe they're right. Maybe Emily and I are over forever. But if she called me tomorrow, I'd still go." Emily closed her eyes. Tears immediately returned. Because even after everything, he would have gone. No hesitation. No pride. No revenge. No games. Just love. Simple. Pure. Love. Then she reached the final line. And this one hurt more than everything else. "I just hope she's happy." That was it. No anger. No bitterness. No blame. Just a hope. A wish. Prayer. For her happiness. Even if it wasn't with him. Emily cried for nearly an hour. Because she finally understood something. Real love isn't possession. Real love isn't winning. Real love isn't making someone stay. Real love is wanting the best for someone, even when it breaks your heart. Years passed. Life slowly continued. The pain never disappeared completely, but it became quieter, softer, more manageable. Then one autumn evening, nearly 5 years after discovering the grave, Emily returned to the cemetery. The leaves were turning orange. The air felt cool, peaceful. She carried fresh flowers. As always, she sat beside Nathan's grave and smiled sadly. "You would have hated my driving." A small laugh escaped her, the kind that comes from old memories, not fresh wounds. Then she looked down at the stone, at the name, at the dates, at the life that ended too soon. And for the first time in years, she wasn't overwhelmed by regret, because regret asks impossible questions. What if? What could have been? What should have happened? Love asks something different. Love says, "Be grateful it happened at all." Emily placed the flowers gently against the gravestone. Then she whispered the words she'd wanted to say for years, the words he never got to hear, the words that arrived too late. "I would have started over." The wind moved softly through the trees. For a moment everything felt still, peaceful, like the world itself paused. And somehow, that was enough. As Emily stood to leave, her eyes landed on the inscription beneath his name one last time. Died in a motorcycle accident while rushing to meet someone he loved. 5 years earlier, those words destroyed her. Today, they meant something different. They meant she was loved. Completely. unconditionally, until the very end. And maybe that's the saddest thing about life. Sometimes the greatest love story isn't the one that lasts forever. It's the one that almost did. If this story touched your heart, comment, "I would have started over too," and subscribe to Nivra Tales for more unforgettable Reddit stories.